What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Kosher Nostra, back at you guys with another sneaker review, unboxing, and that on-feet look with a sock combo to match, guys. Let's jump right into another sneaker unboxing. Alright guys, I am excited. I hope you guys are as well. New silhouette for the channel. This box is somewhat familiar, however, it's a little bit different, guys, because all of the Zoom Freak ones had the white box with this pretty much same graphic going on top of the box. The Zoom Freak 2, however, they've chose to switch up with the black box. You've got some gold print on the side of the box where Antetokounmpo's name is written, a gold swoosh on the other side of the box. I have to say, I think I dig the box on the 2s a little bit better. Just that sleek black box looks a little bit better in my opinion, guys. But not that different overall. Fam, in a size 11, the Nike Zoom Freak 2, the colorway on this is pure platinum / black and pine green. Retail on this is $130, which is a jump from the $110 from the Zoom Freak 1s. Guys, let's pull these out the box and check out what we have in store for us today. Alright guys, there they are in hand, the Nike Zoom Freak 2 in what has been dubbed the Naija colorway. These are dope in my opinion, guys. I definitely like the silhouette. I feel like the silhouette has been somewhat polarizing so far from what I have gathered just in talking to people. A few people that I talked to that I didn't really expect to feel too much one way or another about the shoe really honestly hate the shoe, guys. Whether it's the shape of the shoe or what they've thrown into the shoe or just aesthetically, just the overall package, the oversized swoosh, what the shoe has to offer in terms of on foot and just aesthetically how it looks on foot. Some people are definitely not feeling this thing. I, myself, am not one of these people. I was honestly excited not just to see a new release in Giannis's signature line, but once I started to see some of the early concept sketches of the shoe, I honestly felt excited for what they were bringing to the table. You can never really trust some of those concept sketches 100%. You can never trust some of the prototype shoes that you see sort of leaking, which we really, I want to say, I honestly didn't see a lot of with the Zoom Freak 2s. But all in all, the overall shoe, once they actually did release it, it does look a lot like some of those earlier prototype sketches that I saw, and definitely a lot like the late prototype sketches. One thing I was definitely taken in from those sketches is with the overall swoosh, how it sort of works back to the back booty portion of the sneaker, and especially how it works all the way around the shoe. And then when you look at the actual medial side of the shoe, you can see how that outrigger or whatever it is kind of works into that. I felt like there was going to be some sort of functionality to that back strap, like you would actually pull it and it would somehow make the shoes tighter, like the Jordan 33s or sort of like the new Vapor Maxes that just released. Really, I want to say this week, maybe last week. I thought it was going to be one of those type things. And once you get these things in hand, I definitely can see that that is not the case at all, guys. It's definitely a design aspect of the shoe, how the swoosh sort of works into some material that kind of curves and brings its way all the way back to the other portion of the shoe where it kind of does the same thing. So you can see a lot of conjunction and stuff like that right there, but not exactly what I was expecting when I had seen some of the earlier sketches of the shoe. Overall, guys, the look of the shoe, probably not gonna be my favorite colorway. I will say that green is my favorite color, so this is tugging at my heartstrings a little bit in that sense. I definitely love all the hits of green on the shoe. Green is definitely not a color you really see on shoes a ton. It's definitely not like a staple color in a lot of people's wardrobe. And the one thing I will say about this upper, when you look at the toe box portion of the shoe and all the portions on that lateral side that are kind of around and above the swoosh and all around where the shoe sort of laces itself up, you have these hits of kind of like green leaves or whatever. I guess that's sort of what it's supposed to be. To me, it almost reminds me of like if you went to stay at sort of like some generic hotel and you pulled back the bed cover and you saw the bed sheets. This kind of reminds me of what that hotel's bed sheets might be. Maybe not the color green itself, but the actual design on on the shoe, or even like a shower curtain or something like that in a hotel. Very, very random in my opinion. Definitely not my favorite thing. I will say the material that makes up that upper definitely feels a lot more luxurious than that weird kind of cheap sort of mesh feeling material that comprised the majority of the Freak 1 shoe. So me personally, I'm definitely feeling the upgrade right there. It'll be interesting for me to see as they continue to release colorways of the shoe, just how that material actually continues to feel on the future colorways. If they choose to go with that same material, or if they just go with something a little bit different, a little bit more mesh or textile based, kind of like the Kyrie's have. On the Zoom Freak 1s, which I have to say were definitely a simple shoe, I personally was a fan of them aesthetically, but the number one thing about that shoe, if you were looking at it and taking it in, would definitely be the oversized swoosh, which on the Zoom Freak 1s, it was actually backwards on the shoe and really kind of comprised the majority of the midsole. A really, really kind of cool feature. Definitely an eye-catching feature of that shoe. On this shoe, they went with a more traditional swoosh and did not choose to reverse it. However, they did continue to oversize it right there. That's definitely something that your eye's going to be drawn to, and really honestly going to be impossible to avoid taking notice of. Sort of like a telltale feature of the Giannis's when you see them on court. Underneath that black swoosh, on the back portion of the shoe, you have some white hits. You have the GA Giannis Antetokounmpo logo right there. And more towards the front of the shoe, you have the two sort of triangular pieced, very neon green hits right there, which I think are kind of dope little placements on the shoe, and will continue to be nice little spots on the shoe that they can kind of accent with color, add a little spice to some of these colorways. The shoe itself definitely features a much more traditional lacing option than really any of Nike's other basketball shoes. The only thing comparable in my opinion would maybe be the Kyrie Lows, or maybe be the Jordan Westbrooks. Those definitely feature a much more traditional laced up shoe. You don't have straps, you don't have a shroud, you don't have zippers. You just unlace the shoe, throw it on feet, and then lace that bad boy up, and you're pretty much good to go. As you turn to the medial portion of the shoe, there's a really, really large chunk of black right here that dominates most of the medial portion of the shoe. We did touch very early on how that material at the back portion of the shoe extended around the back heel of the shoe all the way to this sort of outrigger piece. That is a really, really cool feature of the medial part of the shoe. The one thing I'll say about this shoe is when you put it on feet, it definitely feels really, really light, but it also feels very, very responsive, very snug. The fit once on your foot, while it is maybe a little bit of a narrow shoe, a little bit of a small shoe, it is very snug, but very secure, but it does feel natural. It doesn't really feel uncomfortable the way it locks you down, the way it secures you. It also feels good to lace the shoe loose and slide them on feet, and they really still stay pretty secure, lock you down on that footbed. Another thing I'll touch on is the back heel portion of the shoe itself. If you were to slide these things on your feet, or slide your fingers in the shoe to kind of feel what's going on with that heel cup, it is somewhat pronounced. You can sort of feel how it sort of shapes and folds inwards on the back portion of your heel before it then starts to angle itself back out. So it's not uncomfortable, but it is very much secure. I like the fit of these. On the Zoom Freak 1s, all of the cushioning, all of the Zoom Air that they chose to throw in the shoe was featured in the heel of the shoe. It wasn't sort of your typical heel cup Zoom Air that they go with whenever they go with that zoom in the actual heel. Instead, guys, they went with this sort of small, kind of skinny little rectangular Zoom Air bag right down in the middle of the heel. Didn't really make a lot of sense, guys, because nobody is really striking and landing on the back heel of their shoe, especially not with any consistency, guys. You're always going to be landing on that forefront of the shoe. So featuring cushioning in the heel only makes sense if you're going to also couple that with cushioning in the forefront of the shoe, in my opinion, guys. Whether it's a basketball shoe or a runner, all of those shoes, I mean, you don't change how you run when you're playing basketball versus when you're running, right? I mean, yeah, you're not sprinting necessarily, but the motion of running is still the same. You're still landing on your feet predominantly the same way. So for them to decide to move the Zoom Air up to the forefront of the shoe in the Zoom Freak 2s. Guys, to me that was a no-brainer decision. I don't know why they didn't do that in the Zoom Freak 1s from jump. Definitely made that shoe very inferior in my opinion in terms of the other options that were on the shelf at the time. The fact that they've done that with this shoe, I feel like has really leveled the playing field and really given people the option that makes sense, guys. So since we do not on this shoe have Zoom Air or air in the heel of the shoe, we just have your typical foam cushioning in the shoe. However, it's nice and stacked and very thick back here on that heel portion of the shoe. In my opinion, it really does feel good, and not only is it thick, but it's very, very soft. It's very, very forgiving. Not to say it's springy like Zoom Air, but guys, it definitely feels good underfoot, especially considering this shoe is a low, and that's not what people traditionally think of when they think of basketball shoes. I really dig the placements of green on this shoe, especially the neon hits of green, such as the sock liner, the two sort of hard rubber pieces that we talked about that dress the swoosh on the lateral portion of the shoe, the 34, which is of course Giannis's number that we see on that outrigger that's on the medial portion of the shoe. Again, guys, another feature of the shoe that I really like, just because it's forgiving. However, if you need it to be, depending on how you lace the shoe, it gives you the support, the lockdown that you need while still allowing you to really make all the movements that you want to, guys, whether it's burst forward, whether it's, you know, to maybe take a couple steps back, or guys, whether it's to make those lateral or diagonal movements, which of course Giannis is really known for when it comes to things like the Euro step and stuff like that. Speaking of Euro step, guys, the shoe itself, the midsole, the cushioning, all of that, the underfoot portion of the shoe is decoupled. So what does that mean, guys? It means you've sort of got a forefront portion of the midsole, and then you've got a back heel portion of the midsole. And while they're made, of course, to work in conjunction with one another, that back half of the shoe does have the ability to maybe shift minutely depending on the movements that you're making, the Euro steps that you're making, the lateral steps that you're making. Very cool, guys. Very cool option, and something else that I think really feels great underfoot about this shoe. In my opinion, guys, at first it was the Kyries, but it really has become the Zoom Freaks that have sort of been the predecessors to the Kobes, just because it's that low profile shoe. It's that true low that we were really looking for once Kobe's line got really kind of confused and all that AD stuff that it was doing, which despite how it felt functionality wise, guys, almost all of those things looked terrible. So to me, it's great to see them finally starting to get it right, and especially on somebody else's line, it makes it a little bit more exciting. If you look at the medial portion of the shoe and follow that midsole back, on that back half of the shoe, it actually says Air Zoom right there, which is a little bit misleading, guys, because typically when they brand stuff like that on the shoes, what it's doing is kind of letting you know the placement of such things, so you can kind of figure out what's going on with the shoe in and of itself. Of course, nowadays when we have the internet and you got YouTubers or whatever, you've got other people that you can rely on to sort of tell you that. But as you look at the lateral side of the shoe, underneath the very front portion of that oversized swoosh, you can see where it says Air Zoom, which of course is confusing because it's Zoom Air, but it says Air Zoom right there, which is correct in the sense that, guys, that is where the Zoom Air is placed on the shoe. Very much the typical placement that you would expect nowadays. As we turn and look at the outsole of the shoe, the grip of the shoe, which of course is another thing that is always important in not just shoes, but uber important when it comes to a basketball shoe. We've got sort of two different patterns going on there. Just like we had the decoupled aspect of the shoe, you've got almost like two different grips going on with portions of the shoe. On the back half of the shoe, you've got this sort of weird, kind of almost like a squiggly line, kind of like a family tree thing going on, where you can see Giannis's name, names of all his different brothers that are going to be close but underneath his along the way. As you follow it up and it sort of slims out and gets more and more narrow and becomes a point above Giannis's name, you can see where Charles and Veronica's names are listed again in that very much similar font and text and size that we saw on portions of the midsole on the Zoom Freak 1s. Cool little features how they threw all that in there, guys. pretty cool, pretty dope how it kind of is telling a story. As you follow it to the very back booty portion of the midsole, you can see that really cool freak logo right there. And then guys, what really intrigues me the most, not just because of how it's shaped, but also because of the materials and how it feels underfoot, but the actual shape of the grip on the forefront of that outsole, very much in a radial pattern, kind of almost gives the impression of sort of like a ripple, and it really begins under that portion that's going to be under the ball of your big toe and sort of ripples out from there. I think that grip is really going to be consistent and really going to lock in and feel great on court, guys. And that sort of rubber compound that they went with definitely feels like it potentially might hold up better on some outdoor courts than some of these other shoes that Nike has on shelves right now. The design that they went with all over the tongue of the shoe and sort of that back booty portion of the shoe has a lot of sort of angular kind of squiggle lines all over it. I definitely dig that. I like that design of the shoe way more than the print that they went with on the actual textile portions of the shoe. I like the variety in the print there as well, as in some parts you can see there's a lot of like kind of small triangles, and then in other areas it kind of has a little bit more grid pattern to it, and then in other areas you've got sort of like these squiggle triangles. I don't really know how else to describe them, guys, but they look really dope. And when you look at the left shoe versus the right shoe, there's a lot more white patterns on the left shoe itself. Not nearly as much of that on the right shoe, but pretty cool how they went with the subtle variety between the tongue of the left shoe and the tongue of the right shoe, and the same, guys, on that back heel portion of the shoe as well. Definitely dig the patterns and colorings all over those areas way more than the main pattern on the shoe. Unfortunately, it's a little bit more subtle, it's a little bit harder to notice, especially underneath those black laces. Guys, what do you think about these? Are you excited about some future colorways of this shoe? Or do you hate this shoe just because of how it looks aesthetically? Do you hate this shoe because it's a low and you're not feeling a low for a basketball shoe, guys? Remember, guys, that high top, mid top stuff, it really all was a myth, guys. You don't need to lace that shoe halfway up your ankle, halfway up to your knee to really give you support, guys. You need to be locked into the footbed of the shoe. And how does a shoe do that, guys? Well, number one, by you getting the right size shoe, and then number two, guys, by that heel cup portion, locking your heel and your ankle down to the footbed of the shoe to pivot, to rotate, to jump, to make all those movements that you want to make on a basketball court without hurting yourself, guys. That's what you want. I feel like that's what this shoe will definitely provide. I dig these. I'm excited to see what the Zoom Freak 2 continues to bring going forward. Some of the more exciting, outlandish colorways, I guess you would say. I don't hate this colorway, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the sort of hotel patterns that's going on predominantly upon it. But guys, I like this shoe so much, especially on feet and how they feel underneath. The shoe feels great. It's definitely responsive and it's got some good cushion underneath, guys. Let's check them out on feet, guys. Let me know down below any questions, any comments, any concerns, throw them my way. Y'all know what to do. Comment, like, subscribe. I appreciate you guys rocking with me. Much love, fam. Peace.